Okay, how to train for your first ultramarathon. Now, maybe you've been training for 5Ks, 10Ks, maybe even marathons, and you decided to challenge yourself with an ultramarathon, whether that's on the road, in the trails, but you want to go far. Completely get it. And it's great to challenge yourself and put yourself out of your comfort zone and go for something that you currently cannot do, or you currently don't know whether it's possible for you to do. You know other people that have done it, and you know that people can do it, but you don't yet know if that's possible for you because you've not done it. How do you go about it? Now, when I first got into ultra running, these are the things that I did, and hopefully by the end of the video, I'll explain to you what I found out in my first ultra races and how I changed my strategy a little bit over the first 2, 3, 4 races in order to enjoy the day more, but also get the most out of my body and mentally prepare for the ultramarathon, which is a big part of distance running, whether you're running 5K or 10K, marathon or ultramarathon. The mind is a huge part of it. So when I first got into running, it was literally 5Ks, 10Ks, and I just loved running. I loved pushing myself. I loved finding the structure that I needed to do. I loved the incremental great gains. I loved shocking myself with great results. And then very quickly, I was sort of dragged into or invited to an ultra race in Spain, and that led me into the world of ultra running. And I thought, I could be pretty good at this. And the only reason I thought that, pretty delusional, because I was a decent high school athlete, a decent high school track and field and cross-country school athlete, but I knew that my work ethic was more conducive or more applicable to ultra running, because the more you put in terms of you've got to do the long run, you've got to do the training. If not, you're going to get found out. You can get round a 5K quite easily, but you're going to get found out in an ultra marathon if you've not done your homework. And so I liked that about it. But what I also liked is I'd ran on the 20 minutes for 5K, and that's 4 minutes per kilometer. And my brain just simply did the maths of, if I can hold that gradually and hold that for a marathon, firstly a half marathon, but if I can hold that for a half marathon, then a marathon, that will mean a 2:48 marathon. And if I can then hold that pace, that 20 minute for 5K pace for 100K, I could run 100K in 6:40. And in most years, that will win me and become British champion in the British Championships, and that will get me on the England team, it will get me on the Great Britain team. And that's exactly what I did. And so it's that kind of level of, you have the endurance, you have that initial speed, and then you're inputting the endurance and accruing the speed endurance in order to take that initial speed, and naturally that 5K is going to get faster, but it's all about building the endurance and getting your body used to moving over the ground further and further at the pace that you originally wanted. Exactly the same way that I talked to you about 12 times 1 minute and run that at goal 5K pace, and then try to do 90 seconds reps and then 2 minutes reps, and gradually move up to being able to run 20 minutes all in one go, or 25 minutes all in one go, or your goal 5K pace. Exactly the same I thought for ultra marathon running, that I could run my 5K pace and I could hold that for 100K. And that's essentially what happened. But the way I found out was simply this: the first ultramarathon that I went to was 50K uphill. So it couldn't have been more of a difficult start in ultramarathon. It was super hot. It was 30 degrees Celsius on the start line. It rose up to 45 degrees. It hits medium altitude and then high altitude and then snow. And it's a gradient of an average of 6.5% from start to finish. And it gets gradually more heavy on the gradient as you get up the mountain. So as you get less air or less dense air, that's when the gradient starts to increase. And so the running gets progressively harder as you get higher up, which means you're dealing with multiple factors, along with the dehydration, along with the wind, for instance. If you're up at high altitude and you're obviously dealing with wind, and maybe it's one way and that's helping you off in some ways, but not in others. But the way I thought about it, and I didn't have the environment to train towards it, so I wasn't based in Granada where the ultramarathon was. I didn't have access to a hill that was going to be 20K or 30K or even 40K or 50K up. Didn't have access to that. I didn't have access to, it wasn't going to be the same heat. It wasn't the same terrain. And so the best thing I knew was to try to emulate the conditions as well as I possibly could do by being on a treadmill once a week. I would go in on a treadmill when it was super quiet in the gym at night and just put the gradient on 6.5% and run for as long as I possibly could uphill. And it started with literally 30 minutes uphill. And I would go as slow as I possibly could because I knew it was all about the gradient and getting used to my legs, my muscles, especially your lower legs, your calves and smaller muscles, the stabilizing muscles around your calves, but also the relationship between your hamstrings and your glutes. If I could get that right at a slow pace and get smooth and light right, naturally I would then get pace. And my only goal was just to elongate, to gradually increase the long run so that I could eventually manage the distance. And I knew that 50K uphill, I can't walk that in the cutoff time, which was 8 hours. But what I can do is if I can run walk it, I can maybe just dip under 8 hours. And that was my plan, just to finish this so I can have a starting point and maybe improve in the future. I didn't know that I would get there and completely fall in love with everything to do with Spain, everything to do with ultra running, everything to do with Granada, and then the pursuit of getting gradually better over the weeks. I didn't know that at that time. I just wanted to complete my first ultramarathon. And so the long run and endurance is all that I focused on. And what that meant was I was able to become better at running for longer. All my other running was easy. And when I say easy, I was very new to running. So I was doing all of that easy run, all those easy runs were too hard. So if I look at the pace of those runs compared to what the race pace was or compared to my flat running times, they were all too hard. So I was doing too much work in the gray zone, and that was the mistake I made. If I would have slowed down, and this is the difference, this is the change I would make. If I slowed down and did the recovery runs and the easy runs slower, I would have had more energy to push on the long run. So I would have been able to run for further or faster on that treadmill in order to get better and run a faster time for the result. What I would have also done if I would have understood structure and the structure of the training week is I would have inserted interval training on the Wednesday. So I would have had, as I always say, Wednesday interval training where I'm improving the speed, and the weekend endurance run where it's specific to both runs are specific to the course. So 50K uphill, 6.5%, maybe do some of the work at 8, 9, 10% on the treadmill so that the intervals, running fast and running far, are both done specifically on a gradient going uphill. And what that would have meant was my long run, not only would I have had more energy because I was running my easy runs and recovery runs slower, I would have also had more pace to run that, and I would have been able to go further, which would have better prepared me to enjoy the day. But also, if I had the interval training and I was learning to go much faster for 1 minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then I would have become a more efficient and effective runner at moving up those gradients from 6.5% to 8% to 10%. I would have become more efficient at doing that, which would have made me a better runner and gave me a better result because it would have fed nicely into the long run, and that would have made my long run pace be higher and therefore faster, and it would have fed into the rest of the running. So therefore, going easier or a recovery day would have been even easier because I was used to going and really pushing myself on that Wednesday interval run. So the learnings, and again, if you book a race and you work towards that race, you might give yourself out of 10, you might give yourself a 9 out of 10 in terms of preparation or a 3 out of 10, but you will learn what can I do better for next time and what should I have done more of and what should I do less of. And that constant self-analysis is what you should be all about. It's not practice makes perfect. It's practicing something and constantly analyzing your game. So you're getting that feedback and then implementing the new improved you, both physically and mentally. Hope you got something from that. If you're new to ultra running, like welcome, because it's the most fantastic sport I could possibly think of. And if you got anything from that, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell.